Warning. The following may contain concepts, ideas, and/or reflections unique in nature and not yet approved by government and/or corporate entities. This content is for entertainment purposes only and is not intended to stimulate further reflection or to perpetuate additional discourse beyond the scope already outlined by institutional curriculum.
All right.
How you doing, Sergey?
Well, I'm doing well. You know, what really bothers me about some people, they're out there. They make big statement about something just to get clicks, just to get the views. It really pisses me off. Okay, so
we would
today
never do that.
we would never do that. So today we're talking about women. They shouldn't have the right to vote.
Oh boy, that's a bold statement. You're going to incur the wrath of a lot of maybe half of the world's population.
I can hear some screaming coming in the distance right now. All right, cue the intro. All right, so we laid down the battle axe. Boom.
The premise.
Where the premise is
Postulation.
Yeah. So I better explain before I dig myself in too deep here. So it's women shouldn't have the right to vote is obviously going to be related to a democracy, since that's really the only chance you have to vote. And why would someone say that, huh?
They're clearly not married.
They clearly don't have any liabilities. So I think it really comes down to a few fundamental things, and these are generalizations about men and women, of course, as one has to do when you're talking about macro population. And so I think the elephant in the room is war. War is by far the largest event that a nation can undertake. And dependent upon the course of action that a nation takes, war could utterly destroy a people. It could utterly wipe them out completely. So it's probably one of the biggest decisions that a nation has to make is geopolitical relations. Now, I think it's pretty uniform that men are the ones who are going to be fighting in that war. And even if there's people out there that believe in women also joining the military, I think that there's very, very few who would believe in mandatory conscription for women.
Well, I kind of feel lately, Sergey, that possibly...
What do you feel? Tell me.
Well, no, I think that maybe there is a possibility to bring women in, have their own regiment, and
sounds like you want to die.
Since they're really war games, anyways. I mean, I think both sides.
So you're saying you think it'd be fine if they conscripted Mama even when she was young and sent her to the front lines to do active combat detail?
No. But now that we're both in retirement,
are you thinking? I'm just curious. Out of any of the women that you know, what about any of your sisters? You think any of them would do well in active combat? So you got a line of badass Russians, and
hey,
and
don't always make the Russians out to be the enemy.
Well, maybe the Germans could do it. We could kill your women for you if you want, but we are part of NATO, so I don't see the point. So out of any of the women that you know in your life, your mom was a pretty independent woman. She was very strong-willed, strong-minded. Do you think in her prime she would have done well in a combat situation on the front line?
I would say...
With her sensitivity to loud noises?
Well, I would say that if you're going to have a strong opinion, you must be willing to back that up, not with other people's bodies, but with your own body.
Well, but this is the thing, is that the definition of a demagoguery is mob rule. A tyranny that is led by a mob. And nothing seems to say demagoguery than one half of the population potentially condemning the other half to compulsory military service where they could be all dying in a losing battle. So out of the grand scheme of things, as one of the first points, but there's a few others, it seems to me to be almost immoral to put someone in a position where they get to choose the life of someone else in that type of extreme fashion,
or
extreme
the risk
way.
that someone else will be forced to take.
It's kind of like a bitch going into a bar mouthing off, and she is not going to be fighting any of the guys she's mouthing off to. It's going to be, her husband or her boyfriend, right? Now, most people look at that and go, man, shut that dumb bitch up, because hey, you're not the one fighting, right? So you shouldn't be like stirring up shit. If that guy wants to stir up shit, well, he's the one whose face is going to be used as a punching bag. So, that's free will, right? What are you looking at me like that for? You think I'm way off base?
Just continue here. Obviously, there's more to voting and than whether a nation goes to war or not.
Well, see, let's also look at the compassion argument. I think a lot believe that there's too much. If there's too much harsh male voices, then there's going to be a lack of compassion in politics or whatever. I think that if you look at the strategy of something, your first immediate response should be hostility, which would be that natural, distrustful, masculine sensibility, which is you look at a stranger, you go, you're not coming to my home. You think you're going to come into my home? I don't fucking know you, right? That's the immediate response from a guy. A woman might use a lot more compassion in guiding that. But the reality is it's much better for your initial response to be distrustful than maybe softening to trustful, than to start with trustful and then what? Once the asshole's in the place, then the guy goes, hey, what the fuck are you doing here? So you should never be starting with compassion. And if you have too much voices in the political sphere, suggesting compassion as our first course of action and then logical thinking afterwards, well, we've already stepped our foot into that shit, and now we're going to have to just try to scrape it off. It's much easier to just avoid the shit to begin with. Right?
I like avoiding it.
And so this comes to the second point, and this is a big one, is men are influenced by the decisions of women. But that is a one-way street. It doesn't go the other way, right? Women, if they're in a position of power, they're not looking to support the opinions of a man below them who is not in that position. She doesn't care, because our innate desire is, men are never out there saying we want a world with no women in it. I know of no man that is out there saying that. Of course, there's some women, they get into a position of power, they go, we'd be better off with absolutely no men. So obviously we have a difference of how we think.
I have an idea.
Women are way more influential on men than men are influential on women. So if we take a secondary role, our voices are null and void. Nobody listens to you, right? Whereas a poor woman, she could be as poor as shit, but her voice is still going to have carry some sort of weight in the grand scheme of things, because a man is always listening to the advice of a woman. As much as it may seem like they're not, the reality is, in the subconscious, there's always a consideration. Every leader has a woman in his life who he's listening to. Maybe it's not his wife, maybe it's not even his girlfriend, maybe it's his mom, but some voice is like, you shouldn't do that, honey. That's not right. And you put a woman in that same position, she's not listening. Why the fuck are you so quiet? You got you got your balls in a vice or something. I'm just looking at you in the so I could see like you're just like, don't say these things.
Well, I said I had an idea, and you kept on rambling.
Well,
So
go ahead,
then
man.
Then I had another thought, and thing is if you're talking about voting and you're talking about it, clearly, like someone once said that if elections really mattered, they wouldn't allow you to do it. Like if it really
well, that's true. That's a good point.
and then you can say, well, if you're really talking about an educated electorate, then you'd really want to make sure that they had certain criteria that need to be met before they were eligible to vote. So
yes, you could have
that would transcend
meritocracy.
whether male or female. It doesn't.
Yeah,
matter.
you could have like an IQ test required, and to be fair, that's not a bad idea either. I mean, because there's another question about the inequality of a democracy. Should a moron be making any sort of decisions about how to move forward with the country when that stupid idiot is not going to be the one who's responsible for cleaning up the mess afterwards? I'm fine with that. We should take more rights, voting rights away from people. The more the more selective we are with who gets to vote, the better it be. But I still think that even if you had like the most gifted women, if their decisions are, if you have like a war hawk, like let's just say you've got like a Hillary Clinton, and she's like a warmonger, but she's like no one. I guess you could say that none of the politicians would end up going to fight anyways. But it's about representation. So if women feel that this woman's representing them, and this warmonger is going to go in and start a whole bunch of shit in the Middle East or with Russia or China or whatever, who's going to be fighting that? And is it morally okay for people to pick battles that they're not fighting themselves?
Well, I think in the arms industry, like any other corporatocracy out there, if they can find mouthpieces among women that they could infuse and impart their inspiration for such endeavors, then they'll use that. They always seek those that can groom. Those are so-called influencers. Those that have the ability to get up in front of a public and start mouthing off platitudes. I think Tony Blair is a fine example. This is a guy who had the artful gift of verbal persuasion. And the corporatocracy, multinational corporations took note of this guy and said, here's a piece of shit we could fucking certainly use.
Oh, yeah.
And you see this often is these people get rewarded and it goes in from their political office and they go out into the corporate world. Like, what was it, that one BC premier who, female, Christy Clark? When we were doing a little study on the beer makers of Mexico, we found out that somehow she was rewarded for some reason or other because she has such exquisite gifts in knowing beer that she was placed in the board of directors. I think she currently sits in that board of directorship.
Yeah, like it's Modelo USA or whatever
which basically controls almost all of the major Mexican beer makers like Pacifico.
Oh yeah,
I think Corona.
There's no national corporations anymore. I mean, so Anheuser-Busch owns the Mexican form of Modelo, but then this other, I think it's Constellation Brands is the name of it. They own the American version. So you're not even getting Mexican beer made in Mexico. You're getting a Mexican license that is owned by an American corporation that's brewing in the States. I mean,
So
what a bunch
this
of crap.
This is where this conversation went. You see
Well,
how,
yeah,
see how
but
many different rabbit holes.
you seem very eager to get off of the more controversial statement and get into a little bit more.
Well, who owns the breweries?
Well,
I think is pretty important.
Well, let's say this. It's there's obviously a shitload of bad male leaders out there. So it's not like just men versus women. Men are just better leaders. Blah 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 blah. It's that's not a part of the equation, because I think that you got a lot of globalist corporatists. It doesn't matter who you are; they're basically just lapdogs for a globalist agenda, multinational corporations, et cetera, et cetera.
Weren't you mentioning yesterday that you read somewhere where some Canadian politician or somebody in that realm was mentioning or considering compulsory military service?
Oh yeah,
similar
yeah.
to what they have in the States.
Well, and there's another thing. When you've got you get female voices in politics, and it's amazing how many of these bitches are so eager to get Canada, the States, Europe embroiled into a major conflict potentially. Well, they seem to really give no shits about the consequences of such an action.
No shortage of female leaders cheerleading that possibility as well. So,
and it also comes down.
It kind of makes me wonder, like, that Deagle report. I was thinking about that this morning, that it's quite possible they're a little bit behind their schedule,
right,
where U.S. population at the end of 2025 in the U.S. would be reduced down to, need to swallow, 99 million, and every one of these Western nations saw a significant reduction in their population.
Well, that might be a topic for a whole other video, though. But let me get back on track a little bit. I think that another maybe fallacious a phallic argument. No.
No, I think you got the wrong word there.
would be to say that the value of the woman, the female voice, is the nurturing, compassion, all these things, and I do agree that is the
necessary
good
balance.
Feminine aspect and attribute, and is a good thing, and I think it's incredibly well. Let me finish. It's incredibly important for the future, and I believe that in a sense, men should run the present, but women will always control the future, because in their innate abilities, they're molding the next generation. They're implanting upon their kids what they're going to think, how they're going to think. So as much as a man could be in charge of the here and now, she's molding what the future generation is going to be thinking and acting like.
Just don't have her holding the hammer when you're holding the nail.
Yeah. If we say, well, women are going to control the present as well, then men are not going to control anything, because we don't control the future. So we're not going to control that. We're just going to be along for the ride. But here's the thing. The reality is that most women that are active in politics or active in voting or anything like that, they have carried along with them a masculine sensibility. So you're not really getting that true compassion coming from them. You're getting like a boss bitch who wants to be she's got lofty ambitions. She wants to control things. All the negative attributes that we would place upon men, she has them, but just in a female body. So you're not really getting any of that feminine voice touch that you really want. The way you get a feminine voice is with women having their opinions being made, but not controlling the way that the vote is going. Because
so
men...
Martha Stewart says, I really think you should paint your kitchen this color. You listen to her. She
Yeah.
knows what she's talking
But
about.
some dipshit guy comes in and he goes, a pastel would be very nice. You go, get the hell out of here, man. Paint my whatever damn color I want on my freaking walls. Now, hey, maybe I'm a little off base, but I don't give a shit. So, yeah, man, I've stunned you into silence. You know, see, this is what happens. Just look at the camera for a second. See, this is the face of what happens when women start entering into the political discussion. Big mouthpiece like this guy just clams right up. So it shows.
I'm picking my moments.
It shows the effect. He's terrified. He's more terrified of
Giving an opinion
of this
that
subject
might
matter
get me
than
into some scary water.
he's more afraid of this than talking about some Illuminati rich trillionaires that run the planet, even though theoretically those people should be much more of a threat to him. But he's like pissing his pants because we're talking about taking away women's right to vote. So right there you can see women are always going to have a voice in what happens in the here and now and in the future. But maybe allowing them to vote is just a little too extreme.
Dun, 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 dun.
And maybe we should just leave it there before
Sure.
we dig ourselves into an even bigger hole.
Deep hole.
All right. Later, guys.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.